Welcome back to BBC Rare Coins, where we dive into the stories behind the coins in your pocket and the cash in your hand. Today, we're taking a close look at one of the most recognized coins in American history, the Washington quarter dollar. Let's start. Top 1. We're going deep into one of the most shocking and exciting discoveries in U.S. coin history, a 1980 Washington quarter that sold for a staggering $74,000. That's right. A coin that started its life as a regular 25-cent piece ended up becoming one of the most valuable quarters ever sold. And the craziest part? You might have one just like it sitting at home in your coin jar, tucked in your wallet, or lost in the couch cushions. Let's talk about the 1980 Washington quarter. To most people, it looks completely ordinary. George Washington's profile on the front, the word Liberty at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left, and the date 1980 right at the bottom. Flip it over, and you get the familiar image of a bald eagle with spread wings clutching arrows and an olive branch. Millions of these were made. They're everywhere. Or so we thought. But one very specific 1980 quarter turned out to be anything but ordinary. It had a rare combination of features that sent its value soaring. First, it was struck off center. That means when the coin was pressed in the mint, it wasn't aligned correctly. Part of the design is shifted to the side, and part of the coin is blank. Normally, the mint catches errors like this, but sometimes, very rarely, they slip through the cracks. But the story doesn't end there. This coin also had a double die obverse. That means the front of the coin was struck not once, but twice, slightly out of alignment. This creates a ghost-like doubling effect on the text and the image. You can actually see it with your eyes, a shadowy outline around the words Liberty and In God We Trust, and even around Washington's profile. As if that wasn't enough, this quarter was also minted on the wrong planchet. In simple terms, it was struck on a blank that wasn't meant for a U.S. quarter. It was thinner, lighter, and a different metallic composition than it should have been. The U.S. Mint occasionally handles blanks for foreign countries or different denominations, and mix-ups, though incredibly rare, can happen. When they do, they create some of the most valuable error coins ever known. Now, imagine all three of those errors happening on a single coin. Off-center strike, double die obverse, wrong planchet. That's the trifecta of rarity. It's almost like the mint made a one-of-a-kind coin completely by accident. That exact 1980 Washington quarter went to auction and stunned collectors everywhere when it sold for $74,000. Not because it was made of gold or diamonds, not because it was ancient or encrusted in history, but because it was a mistake, a perfect, beautiful, once-in-a-lifetime minting mistake. So now you're probably wondering, how do I know if I have one? First, check the date. It must be from 1980. Then look under Washington's neck. If it has a D mint mark, that means it was made in Denver. Now look closely at the words Liberty and In God We Trust. If you see shadowing or any doubling of the letters, you might be looking at a double die. Then examine the edges of the coin. Is it thinner than normal? Does it feel light? Is the design off-center? Maybe even missing part of the rim? These are the signs. If your coin checks more than one of these boxes, it might be worth getting it authenticated and graded by a professional. This isn't just about money. It's about the thrill of the hunt. The idea that an everyday object, something most people would toss into a tip jar or parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth more than a new car. That kind of discovery gets the blood pumping for collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Let's be real, most 1980 quarters are still worth 25 cents. But every now and then, something goes wrong in just the right way. That's what happened here. A series of tiny, unpredictable errors combined to turn an ordinary coin into a legend. The fact that it was found, graded, and sold for $74,000 proves that modern coins can still make headlines. This story is a reminder that history is still being made, even in the smallest details. Coins aren't just spare change. They're miniature time capsules. Sometimes they carry stories no one expected. And in this case, the story was worth $74,000. So go ahead. Check your change. Dump out that old piggy bank. Flip through the coins in your glove box. Because you never know when you might find the next big treasure. And when you do, you'll have a story that no one will believe until they see the auction price. If you found this story as mind-blowing as we did, hit the like button, subscribe for more rare coin deep dives, and tell us in the comments. What's the rarest or weirdest coin you've ever found? Who knows? The next record-breaking coin might already be in your hands. Keep collecting, keep searching, and we'll see you next time with more stories from the world of hidden treasures. Top 2. Today's video is going to blow your mind. We're diving into the unbelievable true story of one of the rarest and most valuable quarters in American history, a 1965 Washington quarter that sold for an astonishing $70,000. That's right. A coin that looks just like the one in your change could be worth more than a luxury car. And the best part? You might already have one without even knowing it. Let's take it back. The year is 1965. The U.S. Mint is making a major change. Up until 1964, all Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver. But starting in 1965, due to rising silver prices and a nationwide coin shortage, the mint switched to a copper-nickel-clad composition. No more silver. The plan was simple. From 1965 onward, quarters would be made without silver, and the old silver blanks would no longer be used. That was the plan, but something went wrong. Somehow, a few silver planchets, the blank discs used to make coins, got mixed in with the new copper-nickel blanks. And a tiny number of 1,965 quarters were accidentally struck using these leftover 1964 silver planchets. What that means is a few 1965 quarters were minted in solid silver when they were never supposed to be. These coins were released into circulation completely unnoticed. At first glance, they looked exactly like any other quarter. But under the surface, they were something else entirely, a rare, valuable mistake. Now fast forward a few decades. Coin collectors start discovering something strange. Certain 1965 quarters sound different when dropped on a table, a higher-pitched ring, not the dull clink of modern coins. Some of them weigh slightly more than they should. Instead of the standard 5.67 grams, these quarters weighed in closer to 6.25 grams, the same weight as the silver quarters from 1964. That was the first clue. Then came the silver test. When cut or analyzed, these quarters didn't show the usual copper core. They were solid, white, silver. And suddenly, what was once an ordinary piece of pocket change turned into one of the most sought-after errors in numismatic history. A genuine 1965 silver Washington quarter, verified, authenticated, and graded in high mint condition, sold for a jaw-dropping $70,000 at auction. That's not an estimate. That's real money, paid by a collector who knew exactly what they were getting. A mistake so rare it only happened a handful of times in U.S. mint history. What makes this coin so valuable? First, the error itself is incredibly rare. Only a few are known to exist. Second, most coins that enter circulation get worn down fast. But this particular silver 1965 quarter was in near-perfect condition. Third, this coin represents a turning point in American coinage, the exact moment silver was phased out. It's a piece of history that never should have existed. Now, the big question: how can you tell if you have one? Start by checking the date. It must say 1965. That's your foundation. Then look at the edge. Regular 1965 quarters will show a copper-colored strip along the side. That's the copper-nickel sandwich. But a silver quarter will appear completely white or silver along the edge, with no trace of copper. Next, weigh the coin. If it weighs around 6.25 grams, that's another big clue. And finally, listen to the sound. Silver coins have a distinct high-pitched ring when tapped on a hard surface, while modern-clad coins sound dull and flat. If you think you've found one, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't alter it in any way. Put it in a safe place and get it checked by a professional grading service. A true silver 1965 quarter could be worth thousands, or even tens of thousands, depending on its condition. This is the kind of discovery that turns everyday people into treasure hunters. It proves that incredible value can hide in plain sight. It also reminds us that even the tiniest errors in history can become the most expensive. The story of the 1965 silver quarter is more than just a lucky accident. It's a rare collision between history, economics, and chance. A single coin, struck at the wrong time, under the wrong conditions, now worth more than 280,000 times its face value. Imagine reaching into a parking meter, pulling out a handful of quarters, and finding one that could change your life. That's the dream. That's the thrill of collecting. And that's exactly why stories like this go viral. Because they prove that the extraordinary still exists in the most ordinary places. The next time you get a quarter and change, don't just shove it in your pocket. Take a look. Run your fingers along the edge. Listen to the sound. Because one day, you might find a piece of metal that tells a story worth $70,000. Top 3. The 1972 Washington quarter that sold for an incredible $65,000. That's right, Just a regular-looking quarter, a 25-cent piece that you could have in your pocket right now, was discovered to be one of the rarest and most valuable errors in modern U.S. coin history. It's a coin so mysterious, so unusual, that it shocked even seasoned collectors when it hit the auction block. At a first glance, the 1972 quarter looks like nothing special. It has the familiar image of George Washington on the front, facing left, with the word Liberty above his head. In God We Trust to the left, and the date, 1972, right at the bottom. Flip it over and you'll see the classic eagle design with outstretched wings, clutching arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by the words United States of America and quarter dollar. It looks exactly like every other quarter minted in the early 1970s. But this one is different. The coin that sold for $65,000 was a rare and unexpected mint error. It wasn't made of silver. It wasn't a proof coin. It wasn't even made in limited quantities. What made this 1972 Washington quarter so insanely valuable was a rare combination of minting mistakes, an off-metal strike, paired with an off-center error, and, even more incredibly, struck on a planchet meant for another denomination entirely. This quarter was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, a coin made for a country that contracts the U.S. Mint to produce its currency. The result? A U.S. quarter with the wrong weight, wrong metallic composition, and sometimes even slightly smaller or larger than standard quarters. Most of these never make it out of the mint. But somehow, one did. To make things even more rare, the coin was struck off-center. That means the design wasn't aligned properly during the minting process. You can see part of the image missing from one side, and the details are pushed to the opposite edge. Add that to the wrong planchet error, and you have a coin that stands completely alone. A perfect storm of minting chaos. The discovery of this coin sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Collectors were amazed that such a dramatic error could survive quality control. But it did, and when it was authenticated and graded by one of the top services in the world, it was confirmed to be genuine. The rarity, condition, and uniqueness of this coin made it an instant legend that it later sold at auction for a stunning $65,000. That's 260,000 times its face value. A coin that most people would ignore, toss in a parking meter, or use in a vending machine, turned out to be a one-of-a-kind mistake worth more than most people's yearly income. That's not just rare. That's historic. So how can you tell if you have a rare 1972 quarter hiding in your change? First, check the date. It has to be 1972. Then look carefully at the edges. Most U.S. quarters from that year have a copper-colored edge because of their copper-nickel composition. But a wrong planchet quarter might have no copper stripe at all. It could look silver all the way through, or even have an unusual tone or finish. Next, weigh it. A normal 1972 quarter should weigh around 5.67 grams. If your coin weighs more or less than that, it could be struck on the wrong planchet. Any significant difference, especially if it's lighter or feels off in the hand, could be a major clue. Also examine the strike. If the design is noticeably off-center, with missing or shifted elements, you could be looking at a rare mint error. Sometimes only a portion of the word Liberty is visible, or Washington's head is pressed near the rim of the coin. These are all signs that something unusual happened during minting. Another clue is thickness. Some off-metal strikes are thinner or thicker than normal quarters. Feel the edges and compare it to a standard coin. If it seems off, don't ignore it. The beauty of this story is that it reminds us how even a small, forgotten coin can hold enormous value. We think of quarters as everyday items, used for laundry machines, gumballs, and car washes. But every once in a while, a rare mistake slips through and becomes the stuff of legend. The 1972 Washington quarter that sold for $65,000 is not just a coin. It's a piece of American minting history. It's a reminder that human error, when combined with timing and rarity, can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. And the best part? You don't need to be rich to find one. You just need a sharp eye, a little knowledge, and a lot of curiosity. These treasures are still out there. In jars, in pockets, in old change drawers, and maybe, just maybe, in your wallet right now. So don't overlook your change. Don't assume every quarter is just 25 cents. Because one day, you might find yourself holding a coin worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. And all you'll need to do is flip it over and recognize what you're looking at. Top 4. we're diving into the unbelievable story of one of the rarest and most expensive Washington quarters ever discovered, a 1990 quarter that sold for an incredible $62,000. That's right, a coin minted just a few decades ago, one that looks just like the quarters in your pocket or change jar, turned out to be worth a small fortune. This is one of those stories that sounds too crazy to be true, but it's 100% real. And by the end of this video, you might be racing to check your own coins. Let's start with the basics. The Washington quarter has been part of American coinage since 1932. By 1990, it was still rocking the classic look. George Washington's left-facing profile on the obverse, Liberty above, and God We Trust to the left, in the date below. On the reverse, the familiar eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, wings spread wide, surrounded by the words United States of America and quarter dollar. Nothing unusual, right? But what if I told you that one of these 1990 quarters, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, ended up being one of the rarest errors ever released? A coin that had collectors buzzing and bidders going wild at auction. What happened to this coin was no ordinary mistake. It was a perfect storm of errors that slipped through the tightest quality control and landed in the hands of someone who had no idea they were holding a $62,000 piece of history. The key to this coin's massive value lies in its minting error. Specifically, it was struck on a planchet that wasn't meant for a quarter at all. That's right, this 1990 quarter was minted on a cent planchet, the blank used to strike pennies. That's a massive deal. First, the cent planchet is smaller in diameter and weighs much less than a normal quarter blank. So what you end up with is a coin that looks like a quarter but is noticeably smaller and thinner. Imagine seeing George Washington's face almost touching the rim of the coin. The details are compressed, the outer edges are missing or cut off, and the design looks warped. That's the first thing that makes this coin so shocking. But there's more. Because it was struck on a copper-plated zinc penny blank, the kind used for cents after 1982, the coin had a reddish tone to it. So now you've got a quarter with the size and color of a penny. It looks like a minting experiment gone wrong, but in reality, it was an accident that slipped through the system. A coin that never should have existed. Now think about how easily this could go unnoticed. Someone could spend it at a gas station or toss it into a coin jar, thinking it was just some kind of weird-looking quarter. But for collectors, this is like hitting the jackpot. A mint error of this magnitude, from the 1990s, in excellent condition? That's extremely rare. This specific coin ended up in the hands of a collector who recognized something was off. They had it authenticated and graded by one of the top certification services in the country, and sure enough, the results came back. A 1990 Washington quarter struck on a cent planchet. Only a handful of these are known to exist, and this one was in remarkably high condition. No major wear, clear details, and a clean, even strike. When it went up for auction, the bidding war was intense. Collectors knew exactly what they were looking at. A 1 in a million mistake. A coin that shouldn't exist, and yet there it was, in near mint state, preserved like a time capsule. The final price? A jaw-dropping $62,000. For a single coin. For a quarter. A coin that was worth 25 cents on paper, but worth more than most people's cars in reality. So how can you tell if you've got one of these incredibly rare 1990 quarters? First, check the size. If it feels smaller or lighter than a normal quarter, that's a major clue. Compare it to another quarter from the same year. A planchet error will result in a coin that looks and feels different. Next, look at the color. A reddish or copper tone instead of the usual silver color is a strong sign that it was struck on a cent blank. You should also examine the edge. Instead of the typical reeded edge, a quarter struck on a cent planchet might have a smooth edge, or the reeding might be partially cut off. Finally, check the alignment. If the design looks shifted or squashed, especially around the edges, you could be looking at a valuable error. These coins don't pop up often, but when they do, they're worth a serious look. If you think you've got one, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't alter it in any way. Get it evaluated by a professional grading service, because even a worn example of this error could still be worth thousands of dollars. The 1990 Washington quarter that sold for $62,000 is a reminder that the most valuable treasures are sometimes hiding in plain sight. It's a story about luck, timing, and the power of paying attention to the small things. A mistake at the U.S. Mint turned into a life-changing discovery for one lucky collector. And it could happen again. That's what makes coin hunting so exciting. That's what makes stories like this go viral. Every coin has a story. Some tell the story of presidents, of wars, of monuments and movements. But every now and then, One tells the story of a mistake, a beautiful, rare, and incredibly valuable mistake. So take a few minutes today. Look through your change. Check your coin jar. You never know what's hiding inside. Because one day, you might just find yourself holding the next $62,000 quarter. Top 5. We're talking about a regular-looking 1992 Washington quarter that sold for an absolutely unbelievable $59,000. That's right. A coin with a face value of just 25 cents ended up in the hands of a collector who paid nearly 60 grand for it. And here's the best part. It looked just like the coins you might have in your change jar right now. The Washington quarter has been around since 1932. It's one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history. By 1992, the design hadn't changed much. George Washington's profile on the front, the eagle with wings spread wide on the reverse. To most people, the 1992 quarter seems ordinary. But in rare cases, the mint makes a mistake, and that's where the value explodes. That's exactly what happened with this legendary coin. In 1992, the U.S. Mint was producing quarters in both regular circulation strike and proof strike formats. Proof coins are struck with specially polished dies and blanks, made to look ultra-detailed and shiny. Normally, these are only made for collectors and sold in proof sets. But something strange happened. A small number of 1,992 quarters meant for circulation were accidentally struck using the proof reverse die. This is known today among collectors as the 1992 Close AM quarter, and it's one of the most sought-after mint errors ever discovered in modern coin history. Let's break this down. On most regular quarters from 1992, if you look at the back of the coin, specifically at the spacing between the letters A and M in America, there's a visible gap. That's the standard reverse design. But on proof coins, the A and M are much closer together, almost touching. So when a quarter struck for circulation accidentally uses the proof die, it creates this rare close AM variation. Only a few of these were ever minted, and even fewer made it out into the wild. The coin we're talking about today was one of those few. A true 1992 Washington quarter with the rare close AM proof reverse struck for circulation. It was discovered by a sharp-eyed collector who immediately knew something was off. They sent it in to be authenticated and graded. The result? It was confirmed as a genuine 1992 close AM mint error, in stunning condition, almost untouched, with all its details still crisp and bold. When the coin went to auction, the buzz was immediate. Collectors knew what it was. They knew how rare it was. And they knew they were looking at a piece of minting history. The final sale price? $59,000. For a single quarter. That's a life-changing amount of money for a coin that most people would overlook as just another piece of pocket change. So how do you know if you have one of these valuable 1992 quarters? Start with the date. It must say 1992. Then flip the coin over and look at the word America. Focus on the space between the A and the M. If there's a noticeable gap, it's just a normal coin. But if the letters are almost touching, you might be holding something extremely rare. The close AM is a dead giveaway that your quarter was struck with a proof reverse die, and that makes it valuable. Now take it a step further. Check the overall condition. Is the coin still sharp, with clear details? No heavy wear or scratches. The higher the quality, the higher the value. Next, compare the spacing to a regular quarter from the same year. If you see a big difference, it's time to get it evaluated by a professional grading service. That one step could turn your average-looking coin into a five-figure payday. The amazing thing about this coin is that it wasn't ancient, made of gold, or covered in diamonds. It was a modern U.S. quarter, struck just over 30 years ago, and it ended up being one of the most valuable quarters ever sold. This is why coin collecting never gets old. Because coins like this one prove that the biggest treasures can come from the smallest surprises. The 1992 Washington quarter with the close AM reverse is one of those coins that takes something you see every day and turns it into something extraordinary. It's a reminder that the mint doesn't always get it right, and when it gets it wrong, sometimes, that's when the magic happens. Imagine finding this coin in your change. You pick it up, flip it over, and notice something strange. You do a little research, get it graded, and next thing you know, you're walking away with $59,000. That's the kind of story people dream about. And it actually happened. So before you spend that next quarter, take a second. Check the date. Look at the details. Because history isn't just in museums, sometimes it's hiding in your wallet. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more amazing coin finds, and share this video with someone who always tosses their change in a jar. You never know, the next rare quarter could be sitting right there, waiting to be discovered. Drop a comment below if you've ever found a strange or valuable coin. Your next story could be the one that goes viral. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, keep checking your change, and we'll see you in the next video.